Maurice De Saxe was one of over 200 recognized bastard children of Augustus II, King of Poland. The young Maurice took an early interest in the military and even drilled his childhood friends. At age 12, he was made an ensign and assigned to Johann von Schulenburg. On hearing the news, Maurice wrote, "I was drunk with joy." He was later attached to Eugene of Savoy, Austria's greatest military commander. Eugene was impressed with his bravery in the War of the Spanish Succession. He also took part in the Great Northern War. In 1711, at the failed siege of Stralsund, Maurice swam into battle with a pistol in his mouth. He fought at Gadisbusch, which was Sweden's last major victory of the conflict. The experience was formative for Maurice. Ever after, he held Swedish tactics and Charles XII in high regard. Maurice's marriage to Countess Johanna Victoria Tudenreich von Loben was a failure, and much of it was Maurice's fault. Maurice was known for his debaucheries, including orgies. He sired his first bastard at age 13. He once said wives were a useless piece of furniture to a soldier. The day Maurice's legitimate son was born, he was out partying with friends and nearly drowned in a sleigh accident. The boy died days later. In the end, Maurice wasted his wife's fortune. Both decided to divorce in 1721, but they needed to provide just cause. They arranged for Maurice to have a liaison with the maid, and his wife would witness. Maurice then spent much of the rest of his time with Eugene, battling the Turks. Maurice wanted to prove himself. His beloved mother, Adrienne, was denied a proper burial by the church, and it greatly depressed him. Maurice sought the honor and recognition usually denied to bastards. Maurice, though, did have connections. His father was inconsistent in his affections, but ultimately helpful since Adrienne was rumored to be the only woman he ever loved. Philippe II, Duke of Orleans, brought Maurice into French service, although Maurice considered joining the Saxon army, where many of his half-brothers found work. In France, he became a serious student of literature, mathematics, and warfare. Among his lifelong friends were Voltaire and Jean Follard. As a colonel in French service, he reformed drill practices and became a fixture in Paris society. His oddest adventure was his desire to marry into Russian nobility in order to rule Courland. Maurice was frustrated in his efforts and even considered raising a mercenary army to invade the province. Instead, he stayed in France. In the War of the Polish Succession, he did well, and James Fitzjames, 1st Duke of Berwick, said he was worth 3,000 men. It was a worthy tribute, as Berwick was himself the bastard of King James II and was a celebrated general in French service. After the war, he went to Dresden and indulged in hunting, drinking, and fornicating. The War of the Austrian Succession snapped Maurice out of his debauchery. In 1741, he took Prague in a daring assault and Egra in another brilliant attack. He quarreled with his commander, François-Marie de Broglie, and ran into Russia to marry the Tsarina Elizabeth. The attempt failed and he returned to France. By now, he was unpopular at court and sent to the backwater at Dresden, but after the French defeated Dettingen, he was given command of the Rhine army. He blunted an Austrian invasion and was thanked by Louis XV. The two became friends, sharing a passion for hunting and women. Increasingly, Maurice had friends in court, including Noailles, Coigny, Maillebois, and even Broglie. Frederick II, King of Prussia, urged Louis XV to place Maurice in a high command. In 1744, Maurice was ordered to plan an invasion of Britain, but nothing came of it. In 1745, Louis XV turned to Maurice in desperation. Maurice repaid Louis by winning the Battle of Fontenoy despite being sick. More impressively, he waged a lightning campaign that gobbled up many fortresses after his victory. He took Brussels in an unprecedented winter campaign. 1746, though, was frustrating. His arch-rival, Louis de Bourbon de Comte, was given an army to support Maurice. Comte torpedoed Maurice's planned invasion of the Netherlands and refused to aid in the capture of Namur, instead going for Charleroi. Maurice was victorious at the Battle of Rocoux and took Liège, but the year could have been more decisive if Comte had been more cooperative. Maurice observed, "The court of France makes the same mistakes with the same people over and over again." 1747 saw better results with the victory at the Battle of Lofeld. However, Bergen op Zoom was sacked and thousands died. Although Maurice was not present, the city was taken by his right-hand man, Ulrich de Lodenhall. Maurice told Louis, "Sire, there is no middle course. You must either hang him or make him Marshal of France." Lodenhall was promoted, but it tarnished Maurice's reputation. He received a cold reception at court, and Maurice had little influence on the peace process. He saw Britain as a rising power that could only be contained by a stern settlement. He advocated the creation of Belgium as a French client state. Maurice was so disgusted with the lenient peace, he left his army and did not oversee its evacuation of the cities he had captured. Maurice did have some social success after the war. He was able to get his beloved niece, Maria Josepha of Saxony, married into the Bourbons. Her son would grow up to be Louis XVI. Louis XV also lavished favors on Maurice. He was given Chateau de Champort. There, Maurice weaved a world on fantasy and debauchery. The place was guarded by a dragoon unit made up of Africans, Muslims, Turks, and Mongols. He had to hang some of them for looting peasants. He concocted schemes to found a Germanic kingdom in Madagascar and the Caribbean. He also considered a conquest of Corsica, or possibly moving all the Jews to America to spare the religion continued persecution. He hosted operas and plays. He also took up his sexual escapades with renewed vigor. His 17-year-old mistress, the actress Marie Rintot, bore him a daughter. She would turn out to be the grandmother of the novelist George Sand, who herself named a son Maurice. In 1749, Maurice met Frederick II, and the two discussed military matters for days. Frederick called Maurice the professor of all generals in Europe. After his return, Maurice approved Prussian drill methods for the French army. Unfortunately, officers failed to fully implement the policy, and Maurice was unable to oversee the needed reforms because his health was beginning to fail. Regardless, Louis sent a troupe of dancers to Chateau de Chambord. Maurice apparently engaged in an epic orgy, which was punctuated with military parades, where he drilled the girls. Maurice died soon after on November 20th, 1750. Maurice stayed Lutheran his entire life, which consistently drew the ire of Louis's Catholic court. He was buried in a Protestant church in Strasbourg. In 1777, as the French army was in the midst of dramatic reforms, Maurice was interred in a lavish tomb. It was a recognition that Maurice might have won the 7 Years' War. Maurice was a large personality who dominated his era. He could bend coins with his fingers and pick up men and fling them. He was moody, self-indulgent, given to depression and vain, but also ambitious, thoughtful, and playful. He wore golden earrings, giving him a somewhat piratical appearance. Although an avid reader and member of the Royal Society of London, he was a bad speller. He was a sexual libertine who hated emotional connections. He became more friendly with his wife after they divorced, but refused to renew offers of marriage. He desired military glory, but had no illusions about the cost. After Fontenoy, he famously told Louis XV, "Sire, now you see what war really means." Maurice's influence on military matters is still debated. His book, Reveries on the Art of War, written before the War of the Austrian Succession, was ahead of its time. He favored promotion on merit. In combat, he advocated for a few well-placed volleys, followed by a bayonet charge, which became the method used by Britain in the Napoleonic Wars. His Flanders campaigns represented a shift in warfare. Rather than a series of tedious sieges, he showed that entrenchments could be taken with quick and bold maneuvers. Maurice was known for excellent staff work, predating the more professional staffs of the Napoleonic Wars. His greatest admirers included Frederick II, Wellington, Nathanael Greene, and Bernard Law Montgomery. When Voltaire stayed in the room Maurice used in Prussia, he told Frederick II that he did not know why a mere historian should be in the room of a hero. Despite these praises, Maurice remained somewhat obscure. Napoleon considered him good, but not great. Thomas Carlyle, in part disgusted with his debauchery, damned him as part of the degenerate Bourbon aristocracy. He wrote that as compared to the son of Frederick II's genius, Maurice was one immense tar barrel or atmospheric meteor, really of shining nature and taken for a son. He also wrote, "Was there ever seen such a radiancy of valor? Very radiant indeed. yet it seems to me gone somewhat into the phosphorescent kind, shining in the dark, as fish will do when rotten. War has actually its serious character, nor is death a farcical transaction, however high your genius may go. His victories in Flanders were squandered by his political masters, and his battlefield triumphs never equaled Blenheim, Lothen, or Austerlitz in scale and scope. Maurice's life felt incomplete even to Maurice. Among his last words were, "Doctor, life is only a dream. Mine has been a beautiful dream, but it is too short."